Most of you probably have a very wide variety of things that you're growing in your garden, and a lot of them can be put together into ratatouille. Now this is something that many of you probably heard about, you may have made it on your grill. We're going to make it inside today and do it a little bit different. What I've got here is about a tablespoon of cooking oil, and you can use any kind of good cooking oil, olive oil or vegetable oil. To that I'm going to add a small pepper, about 1.5 cups of peppers. Now, I'm using green pepper, but there's no reason if you're growing other varieties in your garden that you couldn't use Anaheim peppers, red peppers, orange peppers, any kind you want. There's no reason just because this is a traditional dish made this way that it has to stay that way. We can turn it into an Oklahoma version of ratatouille simply by making some changes with what you've got available growing in your own place. I've got a small onion and a clove of garlic that I've minced up. We're going to let these simmer for about 5 minutes. Just to soften up a bit before we add the other ingredients. And we want to keep these just softening up a little bit more, but while that's going on, I wanted to get ready for the next step. Now, this particular dish, ratatouille, the primary ingredient, the signature ingredient is eggplant. And when you start with eggplant, there are several different varieties. I'm going to use one of the traditional larger ones that we find. I've actually got one of the smaller ones. I've cut it into about 1/2-inch cubes, and I've sprinkled salt all over it and let it sit about 1/2 hour. And that draws some of the moisture out. You can see that they're wet, and that's not because I've put water on them. It's because the moisture has been pulled out by the salt. That also helps keep them from turning dark. It's important that you rinse the salt off after you have let the eggplant sit for a while. Doing that helps reduce the sodium content, and if you're on a sodium-restricted diet, you probably should skip that step of salting it altogether. Salting it does help pull some of the bitterness out of the eggplant, but if you start with one that's young and tender, you'll have pretty good luck without any bitterness. Also, if it's a little bit older, you can reduce the bitterness by peeling it. Otherwise, in this dish anyway, I would leave the peeling on. We're going to add the eggplant to our other ingredients, the pepper and the onion and garlic. I'm also going to add a summer squash. I'm using zucchini, but if you got patty pan or any other kind of summer squash is going to work just fine as well. I have a large tomato that I've cut into wedges, and I have 1 tablespoon of fresh basil, about 1/8 teaspoon of pepper, and 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which you may not want to add at this time, since you may want to wait and see how much salt is left and whether or not you want to go ahead and add more after you've got it cooked down a bit. Go ahead and cover this and let it cook for about 5 to 7 minutes. Now, eggplant is not good if it's not cooked well, so you don't really have to worry about overcooking this. The eggplant is just going to continue to get softer, so it actually will get better. And this may look like a lot, but it's also something that tastes better after it's sat for a day or so. So feel free to make it up in quantity like this, even if there's only 1 or 2 of you in the household. One of the things you'll notice is the kind of pot that I'm using. I often use glass and some other things, but this one I wanted to make sure that I use stainless steel as opposed to anything aluminum or carbon steel. It will darken the eggplant, so you need to make sure that you choose a type that's not going to happen with, so that stainless steel works very well, and it's the same for knives. You want to make sure you use a stainless steel knife. Now, I'm serving this on rice. You could serve it on couscous. You could serve it on top of polenta. You could serve it on top of a baked potato. You could serve it on top of any kind of pasta. And then I'm going to stir or sprinkle a little bit of parsley over the top. You could stir some in or just sprinkle it over depending on how much you like parsley as a flavoring too. And then about 1 tablespoon per serving of shredded Parmesan cheese makes it a really nice dish. And this actually at this point can become a main dish, so that it may look like a lot, but when you consider this has most of what you need along with a glass of milk or maybe some pudding for dessert, you've got a really seasonal meal, very good, quick, and tasty. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.